What kind of leader runs a company he hasn't stepped foot in for over a year? That question had been gnawing at Owen Zeller for weeks. He'd built his grocery chain from a single corner store in his 20s to 13 busy locations across 3 counties. Now 51, he spent most of his time in the downtown corporate office, buried in spreadsheets, budgets, and meetings that sounded more like theater than truth. Lately, the numbers didn't add up. Sales at Store 9, one of the busiest stores, were dropping, employee turnover was up, and the last customer satisfaction report was the worst in 5 years. The store manager's report blamed budget cuts and labor shortages, but it didn't sit right with Owen. Something about it felt too polished. He decided to go undercover. He went all in. New haircut, thick glasses, dyed his hair a few shades darker, grew out a bit of stubble. Nobody at Store 9 had ever met him. He'd only seen the staff through HR photos and internal reports. It was a corporate chain with layers between him and the floor workers. He figured he'd blend in just fine. He told HR he was taking 2 weeks off for a personal retreat. Instead, he showed up at Store 9 at 6 in the morning on a Monday as Chris, the newest stocking trainee. The manager, a man named Eric, barely looked at him. "You're the new guy, great, grab a vest, go find Tabitha, she'll show you dry goods." Tabitha Granger was the assistant supervisor for the early stock crew, mid-30s, tired eyes but sharp. She glanced at him, handed him a box cutter, and nodded toward the cereal aisle. "Don't slice the boxes like a lunatic. We reshelve damaged ones, but the barcodes still gotta scan." Got it," Owen said, keeping his voice lower than usual. The first few hours were quiet. He followed Tabitha's lead, unpacking pallets, lining up soup cans, restocking peanut butter. Everyone moved fast. No one had time to chat unless it was about shelf placement or missing items. By day 3, Owen's arms ached, his lower back throbbed, and he'd started to feel what it was really like to be on the ground. The break room was always tense. Folks whispered. People clocked out without smiles. Something was off. On Thursday, just after 6:30 in the morning, Owen was restocking instant noodles in aisle 7. The shelves were low and he was crouched down, checking sell-by dates. That's when he heard it. 2 voices just around the corner in snacks. "You hear Eric again yesterday?" one asked, muffled by a mouthful of chips. "Same story," the other laughed. "Blaming corporate budget cuts for why we can't get another damn night shift worker. Please, we've had 5 applicants this month." Owen froze. "Yeah," the first guy continued. "He rejected 2 of them right out, said one looked too slow and the other had bad energy, whatever that means." "No surprise," the second said. "He likes things just hard enough so we're always scrambling, then he gets to play hero when he helps out." Owen didn't move. His fingers gripped the shelves. "Honestly," the first one muttered, "if corporate actually knew what he was doing, they'd yank him out of here so fast." The 2 walked off, still laughing. Owen stayed crouched behind the shelf, heart pounding. He wasn't angry, not yet. He was disappointed. Deeply, he trusted his managers to lead with respect, to keep things running, not to play games with staffing to look good, and rejecting applicants while blaming budget cuts. That was a lie. A dangerous one. That moment hit him harder than he expected. He thought of the single mom he saw on her phone yesterday during break, frantically trying to find someone to watch her kid. Or the older stocker Randy who worked 2 shifts in a row and still smiled at every customer who asked for help finding baking powder. They deserved better. He took a breath, stood, and pushed the noodle box onto the shelf. His hands were shaking. Tabitha walked past, eyeing him. "You good?" she asked, pausing. "Yeah," he said with a tight nod. "Just thinking." She tilted her head slightly but didn't push. "Just don't think too long. That pallet's not gonna unbox itself." He gave a weak grin and got back to work, but his mind was racing. He needed to see more, needed to be sure, and he needed to talk to Tabitha again. There was something about her sharp, observant, like she'd been biting her tongue for a long time. Owen knew one thing for sure. He wasn't leaving this location until he saw exactly what the hell was going on. Friday came with a gray, flat sky and the kind of cold that seeped through the bay doors at the rear of the store. The morning shift was short-staffed again, which meant Tabitha was already juggling 2 pallets of dairy and a returns cart before Owen even clocked in. He didn't ask questions. He grabbed a dolly and joined her in the freezer aisle. She didn't thank him, but she didn't stop him either. That he was learning was her version of trust. "Keep the butters up front," she said as they unloaded. "That section's always a mess by noon." Owen nodded and moved quickly. He didn't want to talk yet. Not while Eric was pacing the front end again, pretending to check the floor but clearly just looking for someone to scold. By late morning, Owen had seen enough to know the problems ran deeper than just staffing. There was no structure. Tasks were scattered. Communication happened in fragments, usually shouted across aisles or scribbled on post-it notes stuck to carts. He caught Tabitha during the first lull of the day, standing near the backroom lockers, massaging her temple. "You always this short-handed?" he asked without preamble. She gave a quiet laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Only on days ending in Y." He stepped closer. "Ever try asking for more help?" Her eyes flicked to him, guarded. "You new here, right? So let me explain something. Requests go one way down." "Not up. Still," Owen said carefully, "feels like this place could run smoother." "Sure," she said, turning back toward the stockroom. "And I could sprout wings and fly inventory across the store. You want to help? Grab the mop. We had a spill in frozen last hour and nobody's touched it." He did. Later, while cleaning up the melted trail from a dropped bag of vegetables, Owen spotted something that stopped him mid-swipe: a young cashier, maybe 19, standing stiff behind register 3. Her name tag read Rena, and her eyes were locked on Eric, who was speaking low and fast, leaning far too close over the counter. Owen couldn't hear what was being said, but Rena's jaw was clenched and her hands were trembling as she tried to scan a bag of apples. Eric finally stepped back, waved dismissively, and walked off toward customer service. Rena dropped the apples, breathed out like she'd been holding it in for 10 minutes. Then she reset her shoulders and kept scanning. Owen left the mop in the corner and headed straight for her lane. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. She didn't look up. "Fine." He seemed pretty intense. "He's like that," she muttered, eyes never leaving the scanner. "To everyone, you get used to it." Owen didn't reply. She didn't want sympathy, she wanted to be left alone, but the image stuck with him. That night he stayed late. Most of the floor crew had clocked out. The store was quiet except for the soft hum of refrigeration units and the occasional beep from a closing register. He found Tabitha near the backroom, organizing damaged product returns. "Why's Rena afraid of him?" he asked. Tabitha didn't flinch, just kept sorting dented cans into cardboard flats. "She's not the only one. You seen how he talks to the guys in produce?" "I've seen enough." She paused. "You're not just a stalker, are you?" Owen met her eyes. "No, didn't think so," she said, then went back to work. "You ask too many questions and your shoes are too clean." He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Why do you stay?" She tapped a barcode into her scanner. "Because I've got 2 kids. Because I can't afford to lose the health benefits. Because I've been here 6 years and if I walk, I start over somewhere else making $3 less an hour." She turned to face him. "That answer your question?" He nodded once. She stepped closer, voice quiet now. "You want to know what else?" "We've had 3 good employees leave in the last month. One moved to the next town over for a better manager. The other 2, one quit crying in the break room. The other walked out mid-shift and never came back." Owen stayed silent. Tabitha pressed on. "Every time we get someone with a work ethic, Eric drives them out. He talks over them, rewrites schedules without notice, and then acts like he's the glue holding this place together." "Why hasn't HR stepped in?" Owen asked. Her laugh was short and humorless. "You think HR pays attention to this store? He controls the narrative, sends in neat reports, cherry-picks his numbers, and blames everything else on corporate constraints." Owen's jaw tightened. Tabitha tilted her head. "You gonna fix it?" He didn't answer. Saturday morning, Owen arrived early. He skipped the back room and went straight to the floor, walking every aisle. He talked less, watched more. At noon, a delivery arrived, 30 boxes of shelf-stable goods. Eric strolled out of the office, saw the delivery, and waved it off. "Leave it by the aisle," he said to the driver. "We'll get to it." The driver hesitated. "Company policy says it needs to be cleared by a supervisor before I leave." Eric rolled his eyes. "You got your signature. Go." Owen stepped forward. "I'll help unload." Eric looked at him with vague disinterest. "New guy, huh? Don't overthink it. If it sits out, it sits out." Owen didn't respond. He just started moving boxes. By the time the last box was stacked inside, Owen's shirt was soaked in sweat and his shoulders ached. But he felt sharper than he had in months. That evening, he asked Tabitha for the weekly schedule. She hesitated, then handed him a folded printout from her clipboard. He scanned it quickly. 2 part-timers listed for Sunday, both under 20 hours. No supervisor coverage until late afternoon. Rena scheduled for a double. Owen looked up. "This is a disaster," Tabitha shrugged. "We've had worse." He handed it back. "Not anymore." Sunday morning, Owen arrived dressed in a plain button-down and jeans, no vest, no name tag. He walked straight into the manager's office without knocking. Eric looked up from his chair, clearly annoyed. "You're not on the schedule. I know who I am," Owen said, shutting the door behind him. "You don't?" Eric blinked. "What?" Owen stepped forward. "My name is Owen Zeller. I own this entire chain." Eric paled. Owen didn't raise his voice. "He didn't need to. I've spent the last week watching you lie to employees, dismiss applicants, and create a toxic work environment while blaming corporate for your own choices." Eric stood up, trying to recover. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There hasn't." Owen held up a folder. Inside were printouts, schedules, complaints, inventory discrepancies, and a typed summary of every conversation he'd had over the past 7 days. "You're done here," he said. "Effective immediately." Eric didn't speak, just sank back into his chair. Owen turned to leave, then paused. "Security will escort you out in 10 minutes. I suggest you don't make them wait." He walked out, found Tabitha near the front end, and handed her a new set of keys. "I need you to run this place until we bring in a new manager." She stared at him, stunned. "You serious?" "Completely." "You've been holding this place together with duct tape and grit. You deserve better, they all do." She swallowed hard. "It's about time." Owen nodded. "Yeah, it is." By Monday morning, the entire store had shifted. Not in pace, shelves were still half-stocked, lines still formed at peak hours but in air. People looked around more, watched, waited. Word had spread fast. Some whispered about a corporate visit. Others thought maybe an audit. But those who worked the floor, those who'd seen Owen in a vest and calloused hands, knew the truth. The owner had been standing next to them, breaking down boxes, pushing pallets, mopping spills. Owen had no interest in making speeches. He returned just after opening, in plain clothes again, and headed straight for the back office. Tabitha was already inside, standing by the dry erase board with a half-redrawn task list. She looked over her shoulder but didn't flinch. "I need a minute," Owen said. She nodded and stepped out, closing the door behind her. He sat down at the cluttered desk, Eric's old post. The drawers were a mess. Loose receipts, expired coupons, a candy bar still in its wrapper. He pulled everything out. There was no point in preserving what had been. By 9, he'd called in the district HR lead and a regional operations manager. They'd meet him in the conference room upstairs, the one Eric had kept locked under the excuse of never used. Owen asked Tabitha to join them. She hesitated only for a second. "I'm not a manager," she said. "You are now," he replied. Upstairs, Owen laid out the documents from the past week, along with a printed list of every current employee at Store 9. He tapped 3 names. "These folks have been carrying double loads for weeks," he said. "They're staying. And they're getting raises." The HR lead, a careful woman named Helena, adjusted her glasses. "I've reviewed your notes. If even half of what's in here checks out, we should investigate similar behavior at the other branches Eric oversaw before landing here." Owen nodded. "Start today." Tabitha sat quietly, hands folded. Owen turned to her. I'm not asking you to fix everything. I'm asking you to tell me what tools you need to begin. She opened a small notebook. Start with this working freezer scanners. Half of them don't read barcodes. Then a second supervisor to split the early shift. And someone has to cover closing. This place can't run on 2 full-time leads. Helena was already writing. And the hiring backlog, Tabitha asked, glancing at her. Cleared by this afternoon, Helena replied. We'll push through the paused applicants. If anyone was rejected without documentation, we'll reinitiate. Owen tapped the table. Next training, we've got new hires walking into chaos. That ends today. The ops manager, a quiet man named Lewis, finally spoke. We can pull 2 leads from the training center. They'll embed here for a week. 1 for floor procedures, 1 for logistics. Owen looked at Tabitha again. That work? She gave a short nod. It's a start. After the meeting, Owen didn't head back to the office. He returned to the floor. The deli counter was backed up and a line had formed near the self-checkout machines. He stepped in behind the last customer and watched. 1 register light blinked red. The screen showed a frozen prompt. A young woman with a pixie cut and chipped nail polish moved quickly from one terminal to the next. She wore a name badge that read May. She tapped the screen with practiced fingers and tried to clear the error. This one's stuck in the loop again, she muttered to herself. Then she looked up and saw Owen. You need help? She asked, wiping her hands on her apron. I'm just observing, he replied. You alone here? Yeah, no one else got trained on these. She cleared the screen and moved to the next terminal. Been like this since you started? He asked, stepping aside as a customer passed. No, used to have 2 people on this shift, then things got restructured. She made air quotes without looking up. Now if someone calls out, it's just me. He watched her fix another jammed scanner, then turned to walk away. May called after him. If you're with corporate, just know if 1 more person quits, this whole side falls apart. He turned back. Thanks for the heads up. She didn't smile. Just nodded and returned to her terminal. Owen made a note on his phone and kept walking. In produce, he found Randy, the older man who'd worked doubles with a clipboard in one hand and a crate of oranges in the other. He was sorting while muttering inventory counts under his breath. You always do ordering too? Owen asked. Randy looked up, surprised. Used to be someone else's job, but she left, so yeah, I'm covering it until they find someone. Who checks your list? No one. I just send it to the warehouse and hope they read the notes. Owen frowned. You ever get what you ask for? About half the time. Sometimes they send stuff we didn't even put in. He handed Owen the clipboard. See this? We asked for red onions, got white. That's been happening for months. Owen scanned the form. The handwriting was neat, the sections clearly marked. You ever ask for help? Randy gave a tired laugh. Once or twice, got told to be patient. I've been patient 30 years. Owen handed the clipboard back. Not anymore. He moved on. Over the next 2 hours, Owen visited every department. In dairy, pallets sat untouched, wedged into corners because there weren't enough hands to break them down. In frozen, one of the compressors was making a loud, grinding hum, a sound no one seemed to notice anymore. At customer service, a line had formed because the return system froze every 10 minutes, forcing clerks to reboot. Each problem was small in isolation. Together, they painted a picture of erosion. Not a collapse, just slow, quiet decay, the kind that made people stop caring. By mid-afternoon, Helena returned with 3 printed hiring packets. These are the applicants Eric rejected without cause. We've offered them positions, she said. 2 accepted instantly. 1's coming in for orientation tomorrow. Owen nodded. That fills the night stock, for now. Lewis joined them in the front office, holding a stack of vendor reports. Also, he said, we found a pattern in the supply requests. Eric was inflating numbers to pull from the discretionary budget, then reclassifying the overage as emergency stock. Owen looked at him. Why? Lewis shrugged. Best guess, he wanted to control the flow. Looked like he was solving problems he created. Anything illegal? Not technically. But if we keep digging, we might find misappropriations. Keep going. At 5, Owen stepped outside for the first time that day. The sky had cleared and the parking lot buzzed with after-work traffic. He stood by the cart return, watching shoppers move in and out. Some looked tired, others frustrated. No one lingered. Tabitha joined him, arms crossed. "You're not what I expected," she said. "Neither are you. I thought you'd disappear after firing him." That this was just a gesture. "I don't do gestures," he said. "I do repairs." She looked out toward the lot. "This place still has gaps. We're short at least 3 sets of hands, and the night crew's burned out." "I'll cover night shift tomorrow," he said. "One of the new hires starts then, right?" She raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" "Absolutely. I'd rather sweat it out here than read another padded report." A long pause followed. "You know," she said, "I never thought I'd see someone from the top actually listen." He didn't respond right away. "I didn't either," he said at last. They went back inside. The store buzzed with the same noise as always: scanners beeping, carts rolling, intercoms chirping out price checks. But now the staff glanced up when Owen passed. Not with fear, not with confusion, with recognition. He wasn't invisible anymore. Tuesday morning opened with a chill in the air and a silence that felt oddly expectant. Store 9 wasn't fixed, not by a long stretch, but something had shifted. The employees weren't rushing in late or dragging their feet. They moved with caution, watching for signs that the changes they'd seen over the past 2 days were more than just temporary noise. Owen showed up before the sun again. No disguise this time. Just jeans, boots, and a black fleece jacket. He stepped inside through the employee entrance and headed straight for the back. When he passed the break room, Rena was seated at the furthest table, sipping coffee from a paper cup. He paused. "You got a minute?" he asked. She didn't look up at first, but nodded slowly. "Sure." He sat across from her, hands folded on the table. "I should have spoken to you earlier," he said. "I saw how Eric treated you. That wasn't acceptable." Rena looked at him, eyes narrowed. "I thought you were just another temp." "I was, for a few days. I needed to see things for myself without filters." She put the coffee down and leaned back. "You gonna make it better, or just tell us to hang in there?" "I'm not here to ask for patience," Owen said. "I'm here to ask what you need to stay." Rena hesitated. "I don't want to leave. I just want to come in, do my job, and not feel like I'm walking on glass." He nodded. "We're rebuilding the front-end team. You'll have backup during rush. You won't be scheduled for double shifts without notice. And if anyone makes you feel unsafe again, you come directly to me or Tabitha." She nodded, then added, "I want to learn more than just scanning. I've been asking to cross-train in service desk. Eric always said no. You'll start observing up there next week. We'll pay you for the training hours." She stared at him for a second, then looked away quickly. "Thanks." Owen stood. "Thank you for sticking it out this long." He left her in the break room and headed for the back office. Tabitha was already there, cross-checking the new hire onboarding sheets. She had changed subtly. Her posture was more upright, her tone sharper when she spoke to floor staff. She wasn't just supervising, she was commanding. "We've got 2 starting today," she said as he stepped in. "One's a returning employee, left during Eric's stretch. Said she'd come back if the culture changed. Where you placing her?" "Dry goods. She knows the system. The other one's green, just out of high school. I'll pair him with Randy." Owen nodded. "How's Randy holding up?" "He's quiet, but he's moving faster. Took initiative this morning and rewrote the produce signage himself. Said the old tags were a damn mess." She paused, then added, "Lewis dropped off a temp scanner batch. They're working. Finally." He scanned the schedule pinned to the whiteboard. "Still light on night stock." "Yeah. I'm pulling May to train the new guy on self-check first, then she'll rotate to night once he's ready." "You clear that with her," I told her yesterday. She said, "Anything beats standing alone all night fixing machines." Owen smiled faintly. "That tracks." He stepped out and made his way to the loading dock where a delivery truck had just pulled in. A young man in a company cap was checking the manifest clipboard. Beside him, a thin woman with a buzz cut and heavy boots was unloading crates onto a dolly. "You the returnee?" Owen asked. She looked up. Name's Jordan, worked here 2 years ago, left when things went sideways. Welcome back, she eyed him. You the one who fired Eric? I am. Good, she said, hoisting a case of canned beans. That was long overdue. Owen helped her move boxes to the back stockroom. As they worked, she spoke without prompting. He used to tell me I was too direct for customers. Said I looked angry when I concentrated. I used to go home and second-guess every shift. You won't have to deal with that again. She grunted in acknowledgement and kept moving. By midday, the store was humming. Not smooth, there were still gaps, but the tension had thinned. Customers noticed, too. Several regulars commented at checkout that the shelves were better stocked, that someone had finally fixed the mislabeled salad cooler. Owen spent the afternoon in Frozen, breaking down a pallet with the new hire, a lanky teenager named Isaiah. He was quiet but focused, copying Owen's movements and asking questions about stacking patterns and expiration codes. You worked here long? Isaiah asked between loads. Longer than you'd guess, Owen said. Isaiah grinned and kept moving. Later, while walking back through the cereal aisle, Owen spotted May crouched near the bottom shelves, reorganizing mislaid boxes. He joined her. New guy doing all right, he's sharp, she said. Picks things up quick. Didn't ask me to repeat anything twice. You good switching to nights? She stood and stretched her back. Better than juggling 6 machines by myself. At least on night shift I can breathe. Owen leaned against the aisle end cap. We're bringing in another part-timer next week. You'll have someone to split the shift with, May gave a slow nod. All right, that'll help. He didn't push the conversation further. She didn't need a pep talk. She needed time and consistency. As the sun dipped low, Owen found himself back in the office. The reports were cleaner now. Tabitha had started tracking floor performance and staffing gaps in a live spreadsheet. It wasn't flashy, but it was functional, exactly what the store needed. Lewis stopped in around closing, dropping off updated vendor logs. Got a call from the warehouse, he said. Turns out Eric was overordering perishables and then letting them expire in back stock, said it was safety inventory. We'll audit everything he touched, Owen said. Quietly, Lewis nodded. Already started. After he left, Owen sat alone for a while. The store was winding down. He could hear the occasional beep of a closing register and the low murmur of staff cleaning up. Tabitha stepped in, holding a folded list. These are the folks who have picked up extra shifts the last 2 weeks. I want to get them bonuses before Friday. Doesn't have to be big. Just enough to say we noticed. Owen took the list. We'll do more than that, but this is a good start, she lingered. You staying through the end of the week. I'm staying until this place can run without bleeding. A pause. I didn't think I'd ever see change here, she said. But I'm starting to. You're making it happen, he said. I'm just clearing the path. She gave a small nod and left. At closing, Owen walked the floor one last time. The aisles weren't perfect. A few end caps still needed restocking. A spill hadn't been fully mopped in dairy. But the difference was undeniable. There was structure, there was effort. There was pride. He stopped near the front doors and looked back. May was locking down self-check. Randy was wiping down produce bins. Rena was walking a cart back to the corral, humming. It wasn't fixed, not completely. But it was healing, and this time it wouldn't be forgotten.